And welcome to Animal Park. I'm Kate Humble.
And I'm Ben Fogle, and these are Blossom and Bruno, Longleat's two Chinese pot-bellied pigs.
And they're having a lovely time, aren't they, rootling around for their vegetables. They make a terrible noise. They sound a bit like you when you're asleep.
Thank you, Kate. Charming as ever. Have you noticed they've left all the cabbage as well?
No,
Far too healthy for them.
Eat your greens. Well, we'll be catching up with lots more animals in the park, as well as bringing you stories from the house and the estate.
Here's what's coming up in today's programme.
Zazzy's twin cubs need their second inoculations, and they're not good patients.
Molly the iguana could die if something isn't done about her damaged tail.
Yeah, we're going to have to amputate a bit higher up to get rid of all this.
And Trevor the jealous ostrich won't stand for anyone messing with his gal.
He's not going to let Tim just sort of wander in and have his way with her.
But first, we're going up to the lion house, where Zazzy's two new cubs are now 11 weeks old. The twins are both girls, and they've now been given names, Nala and Stumpy. Today they're in for a shock, because the time has come for their second round of inoculations. They may not be as big as Mum, but they're just as wild. So this isn't going to be easy, as Keeper Bob Trollope knows.
There's going to be a lot of noise in it, so when we go in there, you have to be prepared. 4 weeks ago, they had their first dose. They were a little bit noisy and lively then, but now they know what's happening. They're going to be twice as bad.
They've also almost doubled in size since their first inoculations. Vet Duncan Williams is standing by with the vaccines, but it will be down to a couple of trainee keepers to catch the cubs, Stuart Sears and Duncan Turner. This will be only the second time they've done this.
Just going to follow the same instructions that we were given before. Get them by the tail and hold them down so nice and securely so that the vet can administer the jabs that they need.
Last time I managed to get my arm scratched, so I wasn't quite so aware of how strong they were last time. This time I'm more aware of that. So.
Zazzy's been separated into another pen, and the keeper in charge of the lions, Brian Kent, has got everything ready for the trainees.
Just got to go in and do it, really. If you hesitate too much, it just gets a bit harder to do. They just got to grab them.
Stuart is the first into the lion's den. A good catch, and the injection is swiftly done. The vaccine is to protect them against cat flu. Now it's Duncan's turn. Last time he was a bit hesitant.
Go on, Duncan. Go on.
Those teeth and claws are awfully sharp.
It is a bit daunting for anyone who's got to do it the first time. People were put off by the noise because they sound a lot more vicious than what they actually are. You know, they could do you a lot of damage, but the fact is, they're most probably more scared than what Duncan is, but I didn't watch that.
The cubs also need a dose of worming solution. They don't like it one bit, and it turns out to be the worst part for Duncan too.
I tried to lift his head up so he could get to the mouth, and that's when it all went kind of pear-shaped somehow.
In fact, the keeper in charge of the lions, Brian Kent, had to intervene and was wounded in the struggle.
Draw a bit of blood. Could do a bit more than that if they wanted to.
I tried first of all going in as I did before and applying that same amount of pressure because I was nervous about hurting the animal. But then I realised if I didn't put that pressure on, that animal was going to hurt me.
The cubs are completely unhurt, though somewhat riled up.
As soon as we let Mum in, they're going to settle down, so they'll be fine. You won't let me then, John? Go on, darling. Go on. Go on.
Reunited with Mum, Nala and Stumpy soon settle down.
It's great watching them. We try to leave them to their own devices as best we can, but it's nice. It's something that I haven't really seen before in the park, so it's nice for me. I'm enjoying watching them blossom.
But the lion cubs aren't the only ones who need an injection today. Up in the East Africa Reserve, there are a couple of much more dangerous animals to be done. The ostriches, Honey and Trevor. Since he arrived last year, Trevor has really taken to his role as jealous stud, protective husband and all-round macho male. So much so that the keepers have had to rethink just how they do injections. I'm up in the East Africa Reserve with keeper Ryan Hockley and Tim Yo, who's come over from over that side of the park. What are you doing over here, Tim?
I know, I get everywhere.
You do?
Well, I'm actually here because Ryan and Andy have asked me if I'd attempt to try and dart one of the ostriches.
OK.
They're due a vaccine.
Right.
And it was considered a bit too dangerous to actually grab them again. I think in the past they have, but it's quite a tricky job. So we're going to attempt to put a dart in.
OK, and you're the crack shot.
I don't like to use that, really, go as far as to say I'm a crack shot, but hopefully, you know, I've had enough practice to get this one in.
OK, well, I'll let you get ready. We'll stay back and try not to distract them. So this vaccine that Tim was talking about, Ryan, what's it for?
It's just a tetanus vaccine,
Right.
Kate. And it's just like an annual booster, really. Once a year, we give them all a booster shot, much the same as, you know, anyone walk into their doctor's surgery and ask for the same thing.
Right.
But we haven't had any particular sort of injuries on them that we're worried might get some form of infection. It's literally a precautionary top-up. We're keen for Tim to try Honey first, really.
Right.
She's a much more sedate bird. Obviously, Trev's quite protective of her at the moment, so
Right.
he's not going to let Tim just sort of wander in and have his way with her.
I mean, it must be one of the hardest things when you have to do these procedures with animals that are sort of semi-wild. You can kind of bring them over.
Because you can almost do what you want, but not quite. You'd rather just have a completely wild animal to deal with.
Yeah.
Because there's an awful lot of frustration dealing with semi-wild or semi-tame, whichever way, you know, you want to look at it.
Now, Tim's using a blowpipe, is that right?
Yeah.
Why use that rather than a gun? I thought most people darted using guns.
Yeah, the thing with like dart pistol or rifles, it's quite high impact, and specifically where Tim's looking to hit is in that upper thigh.
The sort of bald area.
Purely
if you like.
exposed flesh, so obviously quite a sensitive area. No need to have to punch through any sort of coat like fur or hair or anything.
Tim was saying that you used to do it by hand. You used to try and get hold of them.
That's it. We use crush boards. You've got to put quite a bit of strength behind it to hold a male ostrich. We were worried that possibly we could injure a bird by repeating this procedure of crushing them up, and also possibly a member of staff get hurt as well.
Standing this close to them and you can see those feet.
They can tear through a man's stomach in literally the blink of an eye, so it's not a situation you ever really want to get into.
Now, come on, honey. Go on, flap that wing a bit. Come on. I'm not sure I've got the magic touch. Come on, girl. Come on. Maybe you could give it to her orally.
If she senses it.
Good shot, Tim. Straight in the thigh. It's come out.
Yeah, it's
Drug
actually
gone off?
dispensed the drug. That's good. You can see the little black
Thing
plunger
right at
there,
the end.
right at the end.
But how does it do that? Because with a syringe, you push a plunger in, don't you?
This really is just like a syringe.
Yeah.
The only difference is that we're sending it in with compressed air. The drug is put in at the front portion, and then behind it, I put in the air. And there's a collar on the needle. On impact, the collar slips back and exposes a hole, and therefore allows the
The air
pressure
can rush out.
to go out.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, that was a very fine shot. Were you impressed?
Yes, I was.
A lot easier than running out with a crush
I knew
board.
Tim was going to hit the bullseye.
Well, I'll leave you in peace. Tim, Ryan, thank you very much indeed.
In Pet's Corner, there are always new arrivals. Many are born here. Quite a few come from other wildlife parks and zoos. but some are brought to Longleat by members of the public as unwanted pets. Darren Beasley has a couple of newcomers to look after in the Iguana house. One called Iggy Pop and the other Molly.
In Pets Corner we have several green iguanas, and we're quite often offered new iguanas because they probably don't make particularly good pets. They grow very fast and they turn into dragon-like monsters that they can whip with their tails and they can scratch with their claws and they can bite. And we have a lovely exhibit for them here. We've got running water, we've got the right temperature, and it's very warm. It's 75, 78 degrees in here at the moment, air temperature. And of course, we can't say, yes, we'll accept everybody's iguanas because we just haven't got the room, but we have just recently lost an iguana, quite sadly, and so I decided the next 2 phone calls we received, we would offer the iguanas homes. And behind me, up here in the branches, we have the most magnificent iguana I have ever seen. He's called Iggy Pop, and he's just massive. He really is. He's a fantastic iguana. He's a giant male. Now, keeping male iguanas together is quite difficult because they have this combativeness, if that's a word. They do combat. They will fight for the females. We already had one little male, which is this chap down here, and he's just whipping me. That's a defence. Now, the problem is with iguanas, hey, get off, you rotten thing. They whip with their tail. It's a weapon, first of all. They use their tail to swim. You know, they're excellent swimmers. They'll spend a lot of time on branches overhanging rivers or slow-moving water in South America. And any sign of problems, they drop in and off they swim. And I think he's feeling a bit hard done by because the massive Iggy Pop's come in and displaced him a little bit. But I think what will happen in the end is they'll find their place. There's not too much fighting going on.
Iggy Pop is in the best of health. But the other new arrival, 6-year-old Molly, has a medical problem.
One small concern I have, really, is right at the end of Molly's tail. She's just lost the end of her tail. It could be several reasons. The most likely is probably metabolic bone disease. With iguanas, with green iguanas, they require to eat large amounts of food that are high in calcium, so a high fibre, high calcium, low protein diet. They then need natural sunlight to process that, to break it down so their body can absorb the calcium. With a lot of iguanas, if they don't get the right light, because we don't have the climate where they can walk out in the garden and get lovely fresh sunlight, you need special light tubes and light fittings. If you don't give them the full spectrum sunlight, they can't process the calciums and it can cause them problems. They get very weak bones, brittle bones, they'll get breaks. That is the reason. We can get the diet right, which should stop any further metabolic bone disease, but the damage is already done for the tip of the tail. So it might be that we may have to let the vet remove part of the tail, but with a necrosis, we don't want it creeping up further up the tail because it would make her very poorly in the end. So it's something we'll have to watch. But, of course, she's just settled in, so we don't want to go upsetting her straight away, but we want to get things right and make her one happy green iguana.
No matter how much iguanas need their tails, Molly may be better off without hers. She must see the vet very soon, because if the necrosis does spread up her tail, it could be fatal. I've come up to the goat paddock to help Head of Section Andy Hayton and keepers Ryan Hockley and Bev Evans with the goat MOT. Hi Andy, hi guys. So what exactly is involved with this then?
We're just going to trim the hooves, put some delousing powder on and give them a tetanus injection as well.
Blimey. Okay, easier said than done, I imagine. With
yeah.
They seem quite calm now. How can I help out with
well,
this?
if you want to hold on to Charlie here.
Charlie?
He's, really...
I can hold on to the horns, can I?
Yeah, that's fine. He's a really grumpy, miserable individual.
So what part of the MOT are you doing?
I'm just going to sort of trim these hooves up.
Okay, that looks like it would hurt, does it?
It's just the same as us trimming our toenails.
Right.
You know, it's...
And is that what the hoof is made of? Is it exactly the same material?
It's keratin. It's the same as our nails and hair's made out of.
Presumably in the wild, there's no one to cut a goat's hoof?
No, they seem to overgrow in captivity, same as any sheep farmer. Trim his sheep's feet every now and again.
Is that because in the wild they'd have rocks and things to...
Yeah, they'd possibly wear them down a lot quicker than they do here.
Do they have kind of unique characteristics?
Yeah, they all look different. I mean, Charlie, he thinks he's the head man in here.
Does he?
Which he is, just because he's the biggest.
He thinks that, but is he? Is there a hierarchy?
Well, I think the females, same as everything, the females normally run it. But Charlie just runs around getting upset with everyone, headbutting people, so...
How often do you actually do this?
We do it about every 4 or 5 weeks. In winter, we probably do it more.
Right.
Because the ground's wet and it's a lot softer.
Of course.
So they don't wear away, but in summer, we seem to have to do them less. It's just preventive medicine, really.
And is this just the same as almost trimming a dog's claws or something? It's a pretty simple...
You just want to make sure there's no deep cracks and grooves down in the hoof there, that any nastiness can get trapped in and then set up foot rot and anything like that.
And how do you know how much to take off? Is this sort of experience?
Yeah, you just making sure that it's quite a nice flat foot and it's a nice level surface for them to walk on so you don't get any deformities in the feet.
Is this one almost done?
Yeah,
sorry. Nearly. Charlie, you nearly got away there. Not quite.
Just this
We've got that one
here.
last one to do, do we?
Yeah, and then Bev can inject him and delouse him and that's him done.
Andy, thank you very much. Well, join us later in the programme when we'll take part in the second phase of the MOT.
Back in Pet's Corner, Molly the new iguana's tail is getting worse. The end of it is completely dead and the tip has recently fallen off. She's suffering necrosis, probably due to metabolic bone disease. Today, the head of Pet's Corner, Darren Beasley, is going to take Molly to be examined.
Looks like I'm doing the laundry with me duvet cover, but we're taking Molly to the vets this morning and she's going to have her tail looked at. It may be that she needs her tail amputating, we're not sure. I'll have to be fairly quick and I'm going to fold her legs back so she doesn't hurt herself. And probably more importantly, her, my love, doesn't hurt me. Come on, my sweet. Good girl. So I've got quite a tight hold of her. I've folded her legs back there and I've got her front leg. So I'm just going to pop her in the sack now.
The duvet cover is to help keep Molly calm while in transit, and it should stop her from thrashing around in the cage. If something isn't done about her tail, it will get worse and could be fatal.
I'm very worried that this necrosis is going to carry on and we may have to have some of the tail amputated. It may be that with a bit of treatment we can stop any more damage being done. I'm hoping what we can do is we can get her back nice and healthy, get her on the right track and just generally make her a slightly happier and healthier iguana.
Vet Mark Combet moved to Bath last year from America, where he worked at a zoo in Colorado. He's a reptile specialist.
So who do we have today?
We have Molly, and she's got, it may be a tail injury or some metabolic bone disease. I'm hoping you're going to point us in the right direction. The end fell off the other day. That was really, really bad, and we got it back at Pet's Corner actually. Since hopefully it'll grow a new iguana, but since that's fallen off, she's feeling a lot better in herself. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
What you mean, yeah. Yeah, we're going to have to amputate a bit higher up to get rid of all this. This is probably still a source of pain. There's the bone.
Sure.
That's part of the vertebrae right there. It just snapped right off. And if I was bold enough, if I did that,
it would snap.
Up. Yeah, it's pretty much dead. There we go. And Sarah's going. Oh,
Molly is being anaesthetised because Mark wants to do an X-ray. He also needs to take a blood sample to find out for sure the cause of the necrosis and to check if Molly is strong enough to face an operation.
And I'll go high up, but not anywhere near where I might hit a musk gland or any important structures. And basically, hip bone doesn't have a very good blood supply to her tail.
Mark is having a problem just finding blood.
An iguana her size should give a very good yield. I don't know if the vessel is compromised because of the tail injury and the necrosis, or the death of the tail, basically, is what's going on. So it may be affecting her blood vessels. Okay. Not a whole lot.
Now the X-ray. This will help Mark decide just how much of the tail needs to be amputated.
Well, here we have her tail. We can see that there's some problems here. This is where the muscle stops, basically, and that's where the tail is dying from, that you notice visually. But if you look a bit further down, you see actual fractured vertebrae here and again there. So I'm going to base my surgical site on these fractures. What we've found on the x-rays is that there are some fractures higher up, and they may cause a problem. So we will probably do the incision a bit higher up than just there, and amputate the tail probably closer to where the x-ray shows us that the highest fractured vertebrae is.
The actual results, I think they're really interesting because it shows that iguana's had many fractures and breaks and re-heals in its life. It's only 6 years old, and it hasn't actually had a bad life. I mean, its owner previous to us cared for it and looked after it, but the iguanas can't talk. They can't say, hey, mum, today I bashed the top off my tank and actually I fractured a rib. And it is interesting when you perhaps come to a vet like Mark and we can get the x-rays done. It tells a story, you know, it tells a story of its life, and if we can stop this iguana deteriorating and feeling any pain or getting worse now, it's our duty to do so.
But they won't know if Molly is actually strong enough to survive the amputation until they get the results of the blood test. She'll be waiting back at Pet's Corner.
I'm back at the goat paddock with Cracker the goat, who's about to have his second phase of the MOT. And Bev, that's your task, isn't it? The needle.
I'm so mean doing
the
this.
worst
Yes,
task.
definitely.
So what's this actually for?
It's just a tetanus injection.
Okay, and that's for cuts and scratches?
Yeah, it's all precautionary what we were trying to do.
And how often do you have to do this?
Once a year.
Once a year.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm holding him relatively tight. Is he quite...
He does wiggle a little bit, yes.
And where are you going to be injecting?
I'm going to go for the front leg just because it's a little bit easier than the back leg.
Do you go for a specifically sort of fatty area?
Yeah, try and find somewhere which is not too, close to the bone. It's got, quite a little bit of meat on it, to be honest, and they're fine with it.
Right.
Don't seem to mind.
I presume it's the same as us having an injection.
Yeah, probably sting a little bit, but nothing much. No, not at all. But
okay. Thick coat of hair as well to have to
help at all.
Have to find the skin through.
Just about.
Nearly. There you go, Cracker. That was okay, wasn't it? Is there anything else you have to do while you've got them?
We're just going to put some louse powder on. Obviously, they're not, covered in ticks or parasites or anything or lice. It's just a prevention, really.
Right. And obviously, in the wild, they wouldn't have some nice keeper helping them out by putting delouser on. What would happen if they...
They'd probably carry a few parasites around with them, rub them off on a few trees and things like that. They'll go in a dust bath.
Right.
That helps as well. But generally, captive goats are in a lot better condition because we do these kind of things to them.
And of course, they're on show, so they have to look perfect.
We do like our goats looking good, yeah.
So how do you put this on?
It's kind of like talcum powder, to be honest. Yeah. So if I just...
It's a bit of wind, so we don't want to... Presumably it's not dangerous if you get that near you, it's just...
No,
just means that we won't catch a nit.
Well, that's it, yes.
We all done?
Yes, that's
Is that the end of the MOT? Is Cracker signed off?
He's fine. You're
happy?
The big tick.
So can we let him out now?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay, Cracker. If we bring you over here, get in the way of these guys. I'll bring you around. And there we go. Out into the paddock. Thank you, Bev.
That's all right.
So I think we have a very healthy goat there.
There's a lot of art in Longleat House. The staterooms are adorned with scores of ancestral portraits and old masters, priceless works collected over the centuries. But there's modern art here too, rather a lot of it, and all painted by the present Lord Bath himself. His murals now cover the walls of 20 rooms. I've been invited to a private viewing. Well, Lord Bath is very famous for his murals, and since he moved into Longleat House in 1953, he's painted many of them, and I'm extremely lucky to be with him here today. Now, what room is this, Lord Bath?
Well, this is where I've painted the Ages of History mural,
right.
And there's already I'd painted the Ages of Man, and so the next mural I did was the Ages of History.
And this goes, where does it all start? Because it's all around the room, isn't it?
Swings round from, well, the ceiling to there, to around, all the way round here. and ending up on that one.
Ending up on that one. Well, if we can walk down here, I mean, it's fantastic. The first thing that you really notice when you walk into this room is this extraordinary use of colour. Did you paint the room to kind of go with the murals? How did that work?
No, the murals came first, and then deciding a colour scheme for the particular room. 3 colours around the spectrum to be the right tone and much in contrast to each other.
It's absolutely wonderful sort of feeling. It makes you feel very kind of optimistic when you walk in here, I think.
Hope so.
Now, tell us a little bit about this one, because we can see it beautifully.
This is the Greco-Roman period that I'm doing a tongue-in-cheek, slightly humorously. You've got the sort of the ship coming to rescue the maiden who's about to be slain. Lots of people running after, one running after the other running after the other. So you get a sort of chain of why are they running after each other.
There is this amazing sense of movement in there, isn't there? It's absolutely extraordinary. And when you're sort of setting out to do a huge piece like that, I mean, what is it, sort of 8 feet long, 6 feet?
I should think at least, if not 10.
Yeah. So would you have to draw it out first? Would you make sketches?
No, I would have the chipboard. No, it's on chipboard. So I'd be with charcoal and doing rough sketches until I sort of see the figures emerging, such as I've been looking up in books. And then letting loose by drawing over one's mistakes and using, once the drawing is there, mixing paint and sawdust and sort of sculpting the figures.
So that's how you get that sort of the 3D effect, because they really do stand out from the walls,
yes, well,
don't they?
It literally comes out at least an inch. And once the figures are there and dry enough, then I would add colour all over it.
Right.
And then be sort of throwing paint at it and finally squeezing paint from tubes.
It must be, I mean, it must be great fun, but does it take a very long time to complete each one?
Oh, well, at this stage, in this mural, I got people working under me, so I would, although I do all the first stage and all the last stage, much of the intermediary work would be done by their hands.
So you were the sort of the master and just making sure everyone
whipping them into activity. Yes.
Brilliant. And you painted this when?
This one was, they were painted in 1967. All of them at once.
Now, this is the last one in the sequence,
in the series,
is it?
Yes. And now we've got on to future art.
OK.
12 hours of a couple's life, just sort of matchstick men becoming quite alive while they're doing it. The thing that is far more alive than them is this sort of figure up front. Which
yes, this sort of monster.
Yes, well, that's the idea of the computer. Instead of being a little box, it is becoming something organic.
Right. And is the idea that this computer is sort of spying on the couple behind?
No, they're his little puppet figures. He's controlling their lives.
Them.
Yes.
So it is the ultimate idea of Big Brother.
We are just little puppets controlled by the big puppet figure. I'd like to think of it as a sort of a nightmare that won't happen, rather than something that is beginning to come in.
What else has been your inspiration?
There's the Kama Sutra mural, where it's the only erotic mural I've ever done.
Is it? But the one you're most known for, perhaps?
Well, I know. As soon as I painted that, he was the erotic muralist, which it's only one erotic mural have I ever done.
Well, maybe can we go and have a sneaky look at that next, please?
OK.
All right. You can't come. It's too naughty. There we are. After you.
The population of Longleat's East Africa Reserve is growing fast. The ostriches have recently had a chick called Al. The giraffe numbers are up from 9 to 11 with the arrival of Eliza and Ella. And not to be outdone, the zebras have produced Errol. He's a favourite with keeper Bev Evans.
Yeah, Errol, he's doing absolutely fine. He's a couple of months old now and he's doing really well out here. He was born out here anyway, it's all pretty natural, you know, hanging around with camels and llamas and big giraffes. He's a very excitable little zebra, he's running around.
As the herd's only youngster, Errol is the centre of attention. Zebras live in family groups, and the oldest here is Ingrid, his great-grandmother.
Ingrid's 27. Nothing phases Ingrid, she takes everything in her stride, really. She's seen many baby zebras come and go, so, yeah, she thinks he's great, I'm sure.
In the enclosure next door, Jethro and Jess the tapirs are still waiting for their new arrival. Though, judging by the size of Jess, it won't be long.
Jess is very, very, very big anyway, especially compared to Jethro. Males are a lot smaller, but Jess especially, she's got a much deeper tummy. Her udder underneath will start to swell up and fill with milk, especially closer to the birth. And generally her nature, she's a lot calmer at the moment. That's usually a sign of imminent birth.
Jess is an experienced mum. This will be her 4th baby. Not that there's much danger of her stressing out anyway, because the Longleat tapirs are seriously chilled.
We've been working with these guys for just over a year, and it's really nice to get to know them, because everybody really likes the tapirs. You can come up and touch, and they're very tactile, and they're just lovely to be around, but just to get to know them as characters and things is just lovely. It's definitely a love-love relationship, which is quite nice.
And as long as the birth goes well, there should soon be another much smaller tapir here, ready for a love-love relationship.
I'm up at the Rhino Yard with Deputy Head Warden Ian Turner, and we're here to look at the rhinos that we collected from South Africa. They are looking fantastic, aren't they?
Yeah. This is the male.
Yeah.
Grown a little bit.
He certainly has. He really has. And how's he getting on with the females? What's happening there?
He's literally just starting to try and show his dominance.
Right.
Trying to get a bit bossy.
Yeah.
One of the girls is still being a bit bolshy, time to keep away. But obviously he's got a lot of growing to do because he's going to be a lot bigger than he is now.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, what sort of, is he sort of a third of the way there, 2/3 of the way there?
Just about a third, just over a third.
Right, so he's got a long way to go.
Yeah.
And the females, I mean, once he is that size, will he basically be the undisputed boss?
Yeah, that's the theory. That's
right.
what it should be.
Yeah.
He should be in charge. He should do exactly what he wants to do, and the females do what he wants them to do.
There's a lot of men who'd love that to happen. That's the key, grow the same size as a big white rhino. Yeah. Well, Ian, thank you very much. Of course, we'll keep you updated with his progress, but here's what else is coming up on today's programme.
Kate and I fight it out to see who's the best at Name That Lion.
Oh, go on, please help me to say that. Kate will never find out.
Why don't they just have collars with little identification tags on them?
Oh, someone help me.
If Molly the iguana doesn't lose her tail, she might lose her life.
There's no choice in this situation.
And the tapirs have a new bundle of joy.
He was absolutely tiny, very, very stripy and spotty with his big ears. He was absolutely gorgeous.
But now we're going back to the iguana house, where the time has come for Head of Pets Corner, Darren Beasley, to take Molly to the vet for surgery. The end of her tail is suffering necrosis. The muscle, skin and nerves are completely dead. It has to be amputated. Molly has again come to reptile expert Mark Combert.
Oh, cheers.
Hey, Darren.
Hi, Mark.
How are you?
I'm not so bad, thanks.
How's our young lady doing?
Not too bad. She's a bit feisty there,
Yeah.
from her fingers a little bit.
So she's been taking her medications okay?
No
since
problem
last
at all.
week. Blood work came back, everything is fine.
Oh, super.
So no worries
Brilliant.
with any anesthesia or anything like that?
The necrosis was originally brought on by metabolic bone disease, a disorder caused by a calcium deficiency. The blood test has shown that she's now free of that, but Molly's tail, having started to die, will only get worse.
There we go, big girl. If we didn't do anything, eventually the nerve endings, the blood supply, all of it will start dying off, and she could eventually become septic, meaning she has bacteria now, not just in her tail, but in her entire bloodstream. So we kind of want her sternal.
Molly is almost ready for the surgery to begin. Mark checks the X-ray and makes his final preparations.
I have to cut through the scales. I mean, ideally you don't really want to cut through scales because they'll never heal properly, but there's no choice in this sort of situation. Then I'll just use a pair of my scissors to sort of bluntly dissect the rest of the way. So what I'm doing is right now is sort of undermining the skin and keeping the soft tissue intact, the muscle intact, so I can create a soft tissue flap to protect the spine that I leave behind. Okay, it's come away quite nicely, and there's really not a lot of bleeding. And the tourniquet is on, but it's not very tight. So right now I'm putting in the layer of stitching or sutures. And this will give me a partial closure, and then the skin, and then we're done. Just keep her dry and warm, and get her eating, and we should be all right. All right. Get a blink reflex. Can you pull her lower lid down for me? Anybody home? There we go. Okay. I think she'll be all right, Darren. She seems to be breathing okay.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, no worries. Oh, she's easier to fit now.
Okay. Much appreciated, mate. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, Darren. No
Thanks,
problem.
mate.
Back at Pet's Corner, Molly isn't going straight in with the other iguanas. Darren has prepared a warm, quiet pen for her to convalesce.
I'm really chuffed to pieces that it's gone so well. Good job of stitching. I reckon Mark stitches his own socks at home. Through patience and understanding of these animals, we learn more all the time. We can deal with what would be a problem in the future, and we've knocked it on the head, and hopefully she's not as pretty. I mean, she's not got a long tail, but really that doesn't matter. I think she's still a lovely iguana, and hopefully we'll get back to normal life very soon.
And there was a good sign when Molly came round from the anaesthetic. She was soon tucking into a healthy salad. We'll check back later to see how she's doing.
It's very important for the keepers to know their animals and recognise changes in an individual's appearance or behaviour. This knowledge helps them to catch any medical problems at an early stage. It can also show when a dangerous situation is developing. For the keepers and anyone else who's interested, that knowledge starts with just learning who is who.
We're up in the lion enclosure this morning where Kate and I have been set a test to identify all of the lions here.
Yeah, we're here with Keeper Bob Trollope. Morning, Bob.
Hello.
Now, whose pride is this?
This is Charlie's pride.
OK, and how many lions have we got to try and identify?
6 females.
OK.
This is Asia.
Right.
She's very oriental looking from a distance, so she'd most probably be easier to identify when she's outside.
OK, so Asia, slightly oriental looking.
This is...
I assume that's Charlie.
This is Charlie being very nice. He's got a girlfriend at the moment. The one up in by the cage, this is Satellite.
Satellite.
Right.
She's got very big ears.
Are they markedly bigger than...
They seem to stand out a little bit more than the others. Obviously very friendly.
She's letting you lick your hand. Wow.
At the back is Naomi.
Right.
She's very old looking, but she's rather on the large size.
OK.
Little bit
large
plump.
as in
As in
slightly
very
rotund
plump.
belly.
Yes.
OK, so we've got Asia, oriental looking, Satellite, big ears, Naomi
fat.
large. Yeah, quiet, Charlie. But is this important for you to be able to know how to...
Well, obviously, if we need to administer medication to any one of them, and one of the keepers say there's one that needs a certain medication, we need to know which one it is, obviously. And we have to train other keepers into knowing which ones they are. And this is basically how we do it.
And I suppose this has taken time for you to recognise different characteristics and markings.
Different characteristics. You always pick out something that is individual to them.
Right.
This one's just angry.
That's one of the very dominant females.
Right.
You can tell with her, she's got the tip of her tail missing. This is Enya.
Enya.
Oh, yes.
Tip of her tail
so
missing.
she hasn't got that dark tuft.
She ain't got that tuft.
And what is that dark tuft actually for? Why do they have one?
They use it for signalling. As you can see with Satellite back there, if she's a little bit anxious, she will flick her tail, as she's doing now.
Oh, so
And
it's slightly like a
signalling.
domestic cat when
Yeah,
they get a bit
very
cross
much so.
or
Yeah.
same sort of thing. Charlie, obviously,
Charlie's
should
very...
be.
Yes. Big fluffy mane.
Two more females here.
I can never get over that grumble. You can feel it in your tummy, can't you? It's the base of it.
That can be heard for miles away.
Really?
Yeah. The 2 females left.
Yes.
The one that is nearest to us, the darker one, that is Sky.
Sky.
And she's considerably darker than the others. And the other one that is cowering in the background, that's Nola.
Nola.
She's got the tip of her left ear missing.
But how did that happen?
Most probably in a little bit of a scrap with one of the females or with Charlie.
Right.
You can see they're a bit grumpy. Or it could have been done as a cub. Mum, quite often overprotective, and quite often
just gets a bit carried away.
Or it could have been a sibling as a youngster.
Okay.
And Bob, how long has it taken you to identify them all like this?
Well, as soon as I named it, not very long, really.
Right, what we're going to do, sort of almost immediately, which is terrifying, really, the lions are going to be let out. I'm going to go with Brian Kent, the head of section, and do my test to see if I can identify them, and then...
I'm going to go with Bob and join us later in the programme and see whether Kate or I are top of the class.
Back at the tapir house, there's been a happy event. Jess and Jethro have had a little boy. Keeper Bev Evans monitored the birth.
She just started to go into birthing behaviour. She was pacing around the paddock. She was very wound up. She was possibly going into labour, so we separated her from Jethro that night. And when we came in first thing in the morning, there was Ernest already walking about, and Jess had done the job, really. He was absolutely tiny, and he's very, very stripy and spotty with his big ears, and he was absolutely gorgeous. And we came in, and he actually came over to us before Jess did. Jess just seemed really tired, obviously, quite a long labour, but no, yeah, she always tends to do it overnight and gets on with it by herself. We've never had to intervene, which has been really good.
The baby is healthy, alert, and keen to explore his world. He's already been given a name, Ernest. All baby tapirs have these markings, but Ernest is particularly decorated.
These spots and stripes that Ernie has when he's little, which tend to fade as he gets older, just really for camouflage out in the rainforest. The mum will leave the baby for times when she goes off to feed.
Jethro, the proud father, was soon allowed in to visit his newborn son.
Normally, we wouldn't mix the baby with the dad so quickly as we have done with Jethro, but because Jethro's such a laid-back character, we've never had any problems with him, with the baby, so we mixed them quite early on, and they've got on really well as a group. We've had no problems whatsoever, so it's good.
In the enclosure next door, the 2 new baby giraffes are also doing well, and there are 2 more expected soon. Becky is the next mother due, and keeper Ryan Hockley has been watching her closely.
Some of the telltale signs of labour, if you've got an animal in distress, it'll be just the way that they move. When you know an animal, you can just, you know how they move normally, and then when they start to move differently, you know something's afoot. So we might expect to see Becky start to do a lot of backwards walking. Animals in labour tend to do a lot of backing into corners, kicking their legs out, almost like they're actually giving birth.
The giraffe mothers have very individual personalities, and those differences become most distinct when they're having a baby.
Becky's quite a guarded character. Jolly was a really experienced mother, and I don't think she minded having people around at all when she was in labour. And Jemima was a first-time mum and possibly didn't quite understand what was going on. But Becky's had a couple of calves. I think she's going to know what's going on, and you just get the feeling that she's going to hide it from us, or she's going to do her utmost. As a giraffe in the wild, obviously, you know, with lions about, the last thing she wants to do is let on to everything around her that she's going to have a calf, otherwise the predators will come in, you know, and it would be quite a dangerous situation. I'm banking on her giving birth about 3 o'clock in the morning.
So far, the birthing season is going well, but there's still a lot that can go wrong. We'll be keeping you posted of all developments.
Back in lion country, Kate and I are about to play Name That Lion. It's a challenge to see which of us can identify the most lionesses. OK, here we go. Satellite, big ears. Brian Kent will be testing Kate in one vehicle, while I'm in another with Bob Trollope. Enya, no tail?
No tail.
Marking will be scrupulous, and the judge's decision is final. OK, Bob, we've got our first 2 exhibits here, don't we? Look, I couldn't ask for them to display themselves any better than this, but can I remember anything? Now, the one standing on the higher platform looks like she's got a bit of a belly on her.
It's pretty obvious, that one.
My mind is... Her ears are quite large. They've both got tails. What else were we going to look out for?
This one lying down. Let me have a look. Can I see her tail? Tail's there. For big ears, that's satellite.
Yep. Is one of them Asia? One of them looks Yes.
Which one, though?
The one on the right. The one sitting down.
Yes.
Ha-ha! I got one. Okay, so we've got Asia there, and the other one standing up. Okay, we didn't... No fat tummies. She's got a tail. I can't see a nick in her ear.
Let me move forward a bit, and then you can see whether...
Look at that, a little bit out of the tail. But what was her name? Well, it wasn't Satellite. It wasn't Nola. It wasn't Naomi. Oh, someone help me.
So, that one with the tail end missing is Enya.
Yeah. Shall we go and see the others first?
Okay, and then we'll work back, because I'll remember. Yeah. Does that count? Because I know that one was missing a bit of the tail.
You actually have said her name.
Oh, I have?
Yes.
Nola? Yes!
That's
that counts then.
Yes.
I'm allowed that, I think.
Yes, you're allowed that one.
The older, slightly fatter one, well, I have to say, they all look quite
chubby.
Quite plump. That's Naomi.
Yeah.
Now, that's Charlie. Does that count as one of them?
Unfortunately not, because it's just the females you've got to identify.
Now, while we're with Charlie, he's obviously the leader, isn't he? Is there a hierarchy amongst all the females as well?
Oh, they're very much so. You have a leading female, a pride female.
Right.
And the one Charlie is with is a middle-ranking female.
Okay, and I do remember this. That would be his girlfriend, slightly darker skin, darker hair colour even.
Yeah.
Oh, go on, please help me to decipher it. Kate will never find out. Just give, what's the first letter? Oh, the roof. You were pointing upwards. Sky. Sky! Sky! Brilliant.
Slightly cheating there.
Sky. No, that wasn't cheating.
Quite pale colour. Doesn't have any nicks in her ears. End of her tail is there. Looks a little bit old and baggy. That's Naomi.
No.
Oh, no! Oh, she has got a nick in her ear. You need binoculars for this job, Brian. Nick in ear is Nola.
Nola, yeah.
That looks like a big belly there. That must be Naomi then.
Yes.
Walking off.
That's right.
And these two here. Now, the one in the middle looks like she's got very big ears, I'd say.
Yes.
Which means that she is Satellite.
That's the one. So there's only one to get.
Oh, heavens. Lying rather unhelpfully in the middle of the road. Slightly oriental looking. I'm just trying to see another one to compare. My guess is that's Asia.
Yeah.
So, the last one. Now, Bob said that Charlie currently had a girlfriend who is Sky, and so I'm guessing that that is Sky.
Oh, yeah.
That's all six.
Yeah.
Right then, Fogle. Beat that.
What was the... no tail. I can't even see the tail now, but I do remember that there was one with no tail. Because I know that you gave them names according to their different characteristics.
Yeah, she's got a nice voice.
A nice voice.
Singer. Celtic singer.
Charlotte Church. No. I'm not doing very well here, am I?
No, not on this one. There's only one to get.
I don't think I'm going to get this one, I'm afraid. I think I'm going to have to
You'll
concede
kick yourself
victory.
when you find it.
Okay, but I feel strong that I've beaten Humble. While we're waiting for the judges to compare notes and come up with a booby prize for the loser, I'm off on a cruise. The lions are tricky, but getting to know the animals of Half Mile Lake is even harder. The pair of lowland gorillas that live on the island are easy to spot, but the hippos spend a lot of their time lurking underwater, and the sea lions are always dashing about. But there is a man who knows them all better than almost anyone. I'm out on Half Mile Lake with boating enthusiast and warden Bill Lord. Now, Bill, I know that you absolutely love this lake, don't you?
Certainly do.
How long have you been working on it?
About 8 years now.
And what does that involve? What's your role here?
Well, talking to people who come on board, telling them what they're going to see, what's likely to happen during the trip, making sure they're kept safe from sea lion bites and getting too wet, and generally making sure we handle the boat in a manner that's okay for them and they come back in the condition they started.
Because obviously the lake has not only the sea lions, it's got the train that's just running past, it's got Gorilla Island, and of course the hippos. Do you ever see them?
Yes, we do. They normally would spend up to 18 hours in the water. They're out at the moment on the bank over there. but when they're in the water, they can stay submerged for 6 or 7 minutes. You don't know they're there. We've occasionally been perhaps too close to the hippos, which is a bit of a no-no, but you don't, they say they're submerged and they pop up right beside you, so you have to move or stop instantly, give them space. It's their lake, we're the visitors.
We're surrounded by sea lions now. Have we actually got some food on board that we can give to them?
Yep, nice scrummy mackerel. You want to do
and the visitors who are on the boat are allowed to do this as well, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. They
so
love it.
I just throw it overboard.
Throw it overboard. Yeah.
Who's this big boy
this
here?
This is Buster. Now watch him, he'll splash.
Okay.
There's Nancy over there.
They're very noisy, aren't they, Bill?
This is our youngest sea lion, little Mossy, who's taking over the job.
How often are they specifically fed on the lake?
Well, we have a set amount of fish for the day, like 65 pounds, and we eke it out so there's some for every trip until halfway through the end of the afternoon. Then we'll just keep enough for each trip to make sure they've got a reward for following us.
And I imagine they're incredibly popular with the visitors.
Oh, love it. It's a highlight of the day, I think, coming on the boat, feeding sea lions.
Do they have a habit of wetting people with their splashes?
Buster in particular, as they say, what goes up must come down.
Yeah, of course. So if I throw it quite high, do you think he'll...
He's 30 stones at the moment, soon to be 50 stones in the next 2 years, and he splashes enormously.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. And of course, you've got Gorilla Island here as well, so the gorillas are often out, are they, when you're out on the lake?
Yes, but we always stop feeding by the gorillas. They don't like the noise. In fact, you'll see a gorilla beating its chest with distress because they hate it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they hate the noise. In fact, we're not sure they don't particularly like the sea lions anyway.
Having spent so many years on the lake, do you ever tire of this?
No, good heavens, no. I went to sea as a boy, and I'm now back on the water. Yeah, I was an apprentice for 1 million years.
You're sort of captain of the lake as well as warden.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, Bill, thank you very much for taking me out. I think we have some very hungry sea lions to continue feeding.
I am in the Iguana house delivering breakfast with head of section Darren Beasley, and I'm really desperate to know how your new iguana Molly is getting on, because she's had a bit of a traumatic time since she arrived, hasn't she?
I'm afraid so. She came to us with metabolic bone disease. A lot of pet iguanas get this if they don't get enough calcium, or they've got bad ultraviolet light, or for husbandry reasons.
Right.
And the end of her tail was dying off. It was going necrotic, and it was creeping up her body.
Right.
Which obviously could cause infections and serious problems.
We've got a bit of creepage going on down here. Hello. Sorry, carry on, Darren.
When we got the vet involved, we knew full well this could have cost her her life, this infection.
Right.
It could have caused septicemia, could have just made her generally very poorly. So it's a very brave move to make, you know, because obviously animals, they do adapt. They will survive in the wild with some horrific injuries.
Yeah.
But we don't want to inflict things on that you don't need to. You know, if we could have done it with drugs or just husbandry, improved husbandry. But what we've done is we've gone above the worst point. We used some X-rays, taken it off, and if again I'll show you. Can you see that we've got some stitches in here?
Oh yes.
Can you see we've just stitched that up there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very neat.
Those stitches now will be removed probably very shortly.
Yeah.
And she's had not one adverse effect. She's absolutely fantastic.
And I mean, because again, they do use them for whipping, as we know. I'm just sort of keeping my eye open here. Does this put her at a disadvantage with the rest of the group? Because you've got a lot in here now, haven't you?
It's something that we had to monitor in behaviour, whether she could use it as a defence still and whether she could climb. She's gone to the highest perch, as you can see.
Yeah.
She's eating fine, and she's not lost her position. In fact, I would say even though she's a new iguana, she's almost 2 or 3 from the top.
Yeah.
But our top iguana is over here, and this is another new one.
Look at him.
How about that, then? That's Iggy Pop.
So you've got an Iggy, though.
We have got an Iggy. That's why we've now got an Iggy Pop. He was an Iggy as well when he came. But he's the daddy of all iguanas. I mean,
he looks like a dragon.
Honestly, goodness, doesn't he? I mean, you can see where these tales of the old sailors used to come back and say they'd seen dragons and things. I mean, he is a true 100% red-blooded male iguana.
What are these big bulging sacks at the side of his head?
Basically, they are mainly for display.
Right.
You know, they're...
Is he flirting with me?
I'm afraid he is. He's actually showing off to you. It's either that or he's excited about his son, so I'm not sure which one it is. But he is showing off. He's got a lot of wives in here now, and he has to gain his status. And so, first time we put him in here, he basically ran around like a crazy thing for a few days.
Right.
Just getting to know all the girls and generally letting them know that Iggy Pop's in town.
Is it a problem bringing in an animal clearly so much bigger than the rest of them? I mean, weren't you worried that he was actually going to take out some of your iguanas?
Most definitely. It was an issue, certainly with one or two of the iguanas we had in here. There was a sort of battle, if you like, at first. But animals tend to know their limits, and it doesn't end in blood and tears. Basically, they'll do a lot of head bobbing and a lot of display. And with this guy, really, our issue was, is this room going to be big enough for him with the others? But thank goodness it is.
It is, and he's settling in really well. It's looking fantastic in here. Clearly, they're all really happy. It's great news that Molly is well on the road to recovery by the looks of things. Darren, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Back in lion country, the judges are ready. And it's time to find out who's the winner of Name That Lion, Kate or me.
How'd you get on then?
I think I did rather well, actually. I don't know, I don't want to jump ahead, but yes, I did.
You don't know how well I did. We are obviously waiting for the results of our lion identification test. So, Bob and Brian, do you want to give us the scores? Who wants to go first?
Why don't we start with Brian? Brian with Kate.
How good was I, Brian?
Well, you did very well, actually.
Just fair.
Very well. You got 5 out of 6.
5 out of 6. What was the one that I...
You stumbled over on, I think it was Nola.
Okay.
You said it was Naomi.
Ah, okay.
That is going to be a hard one to beat. Bob, please tell me I did better.
5.
5?
We both did it.
That's identical.
Absolutely. Did you do it completely without help? Are you sure? Okay, well, what do we get as our prize? Now we're brilliant.
Prize?
Oh dear,
I'm afraid.
I never like the look of this.
You're going to have to do some mucking out.
Doing the mucking out, don't we? Things we do on Animal Park, eh?
Well, that's all we've got time for today. You can go and start, and here's what's coming up on the next Animal Park.
Okay. High drama in the giraffe house when one of the new babies falls dangerously ill and has to be separated from her mother.
We're all worried up at the giraffe. Everyone knows that the ideal situation is for her to be with her mum.
Some great news in Pets Corner.
Mike and Michelle have had a baby. At last, we've got what we call a 100% marmoset success.
And there's hell to pay when the vet needs blood samples from 3 of the lions.
So don't miss the next Animal Park.